Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiha Vanacharya Yamunatiha Vanacharya Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiha Vanacharya Yamunatiha Vanacharya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Asadhara Sadhu Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Head of all glorious to the sound devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shinvadi Paskajade Siddharne Om Agyanatamirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Zitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosite Tapta Kanshena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishu Bhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivastadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 20, Balimar surrenders the universe. Text number 9, is that what's on the board? What's on the board? Yes. 9. Sulabha yudi viprasye yanni vritas tanu tyaja natata tirta dhyate Sharaya yedana tyaja Sulava yadi viprarse Yani vritas tanu tyaja Natata tirta ayate Sharaya yedana tyaja Ladies. Sanu jaja Tatata tirtayate Daya yedana tyaja Samayadi vivase Nirvata sanu tyaja Tatata tirtayate Sadaya yedana tyaja Sulabha very easily attained Yudi in the battlefield Viprashe O best of the Brahmanas He indeed Anurita not being afraid of fighting Tanu tyaja, and thus lay down their lives. Na, not, tata, as, tirta ayate, on the arrival of a saintly person who creates holy places. Shradaya, with faith and devotion. Yea, those who dana tyaja can give up their accumulated wealth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīmad Prabhupada. O best of the Brahmanas. We'll have a time when we can repeat it. I'm just trying to read slowly here. O best of the Brahmanas, many men have laid down their lives on the battlefield, being unafraid of fighting, but rarely has one gotten the chance to give his accumulated wealth faithfully to a saintly person who creates holy places. Please repeat. O best of the Brahmanas, many men have laid down their lives on the battlefield, being unafraid of fighting, has one gotten the chance to give his accumulated wealth faithfully to a saintly person, creates holy places. Purport. Many Kshatriyas have laid down their lives on the battlefield for their nations, but hardly a person can be found who has given up all his property and accumulated wealth in charity to a person worthy of the gift, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 17:20. I didn't read this before. Oh, okay. Tatavyamiti yadanam diyate nupakarine deshe kali chita patre cha tadanam satvikam smritam. The gift which is given out of duty at the proper time and place to a worthy person without expectation of return is considered to be charity in the mode of goodness. Thus charity given in the proper place is called sattvika. And above this charity and goodness is transcendental charity, which everything is sacrificed for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vamana, the day the Supreme Personality of Godhead had come to Bali Maharaj for alms, how could one get such an opportunity to give charity? Therefore Bali Maharaj decided without hesitation to give the charity, to give the Lord whatever he wanted. One may get various opportunities to lay down his life on the battlefield, but such an opportunity as this is hardly ever obtained. Text number 10. By giving charity, a benevolent and merciful person undoubtedly becomes even more auspicious, especially when he gives charity to a person like your good self. Under the circumstances, I must give this little brahmachari whatever charity he wants from me. Purport. One accepts a poverty-stricken position because of losing money in business, gambling, prostitution, or intoxication. No one will praise him. But if one becomes poverty-stricken by giving all his possessions in charity, he becomes adored all over the world. Aside from this, if a benevolent and merciful person exhibits his pride, becoming poverty-stricken by giving his possessions in charity for good causes, his poverty is a welcome and auspicious sign of a great personality. Bali Maharaj decided that even though he would become poverty-stricken by giving everything to Vamanadev, this is what he would prefer. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Taramane Namaste Saraswatunde Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyas Esatarane. Sadhu Sangha Sarvashasti Hoy Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarvasiddhi Hoy. Then how is it that one moment's association with a saintly person can give all perfection? And how is it where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Sri Sangha Ekasaru Bhakta Oy. What's the first line of that? Krishna Bhakta Oy. What's the first line? That Tyaga Tyagi, that one has to give up. That when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, what is the definition of a devotee? He says that one has to give up these things. Sri Sangi Krishna Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta Noy. One has to give up bad association and accept good association. Just like there was one Brahmin, two Brahmins on pilgrimage, and they came to a river, and there was one old lady there, and she asked one of the brahmacharis, they were brahmacharis, can you please carry me across the river? So he put her on his shoulder, and he carried her across the river and then let her down. And the two brahmacharis continued walking, and one brahmachari turned to the other and said, how could you have done that? How can you put a woman on your shoulder like that? Aren't you a brahmachari? So the brahmachari said, well, I put her on my shoulder to cross the river, and then I let her down, but you're still carrying her. So, according to what we're doing, we're carrying so many different conceptions, so many different understandings, so many different feelings, according to who we're associating with. Of course, associating with people in an exchange makes the association more intimate. So here it mentions that the pure devotees, what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they carry the entire spiritual world within their heart. Bhavan vidas bhagavatas tirtha bhutak swayam vibho tirtir koravandi tirtani swantak stena gata vritaha. That saints like yourself are verily places of pilgrimage, because wherever you go, you turn that place into a place of pilgrimage, because you carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your heart. So that's our goal. And how to achieve that goal? Well, the connection with the places of pilgrimage are done by connecting with those who are connected with the places of pilgrimage. That's called parampara. For instance, in our parampara, if we connect with the Acharya, the present Acharya, such as Srila Prabhupada, who is the present Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that's what this temple is meant for, to be part of the International Society. But it's not just an organization, mainly it's a parampara. The building, as Prabhupada used to say before we came here, the same building was here. So what's the difference? In that in this place, it's a place of connecting with the parampara and ultimately with Krishna through the parampara. And that's called Krishna consciousness. Trying to connect with Krishna without going through the parampara is simply an imagination. Krishna will never accept that connection unless it's done through his devotees. Just like if you want to study books at home, you don't connect with the university, you never connect with any teacher in the university, you don't get any guidance, you never go to the university, you don't never take the tests, you just make up your own PhD and award it to yourself. You become a doctor psychopath or sociopath. No one will actually take you seriously. You ask, you're a doctor of what? I'm Dr. Jekyll. And within me is Mr. Hyde. What did you study? I studied at home. With what university? It was me, myself, and I, university. And who awarded you the PhD? I did. Because I'm such a good student. And I had such a good student. Who was your teacher? I was the teacher. And who was the student? I was the student. And I was a very good one too. I was first in my class. I got the highest honors. No, one has to connect with the bona fide teacher. So we connect with our acharyas through those who are helping us connect with the acharyas. In other words, if we think the acharya had done something wrong, or said something wrong, or did something wrong, or thought something wrong, how could they be an acharya? Then we would doubt whether I should follow this example or should follow that instruction. Now, we may not know if the acharya is perfect, because you'd have to be perfect to know if he was perfect. Prabhupada explains that in the 6th verse of the Nectar of Instruction, To know a Mahabhagava, you have to be a Mahabhagava. To enter into water, you have to be like water. You have to be like the fish in the water. If you dive into the ocean thinking, I've learned how to swim very nicely like a fish, so now I'm going to join the fish in the ocean. You may join them for 3 minutes before you drown, but you're never really going to achieve the same position as a fish. If you want to enter into fire, you have to become like fire. If you're not like fire and enter into fire, the only thing that's going to happen is you'll get burnt. So similarly, to enter into the spiritual state of consciousness, one has to become spiritualized. Otherwise, one will not find any place there. We'll go back to the spiritual world, and we'll ask everyone, not where Krishna is, but who won the football game. We'll be a little out of place there. So one has to connect with those who are connecting with the parampara, and has to be a perfect connection. They can't have any doubts. Now, we may have doubts, as I said, because we're not perfect. But we have to have at least some faith that if I follow this instruction, then I will become perfect, or I'll become like the person who's representing the parampara. Now, if we're full of mistakes, and what is a mistake? Mistake isn't that we pronounce something wrong, or we forget a verse, or even we fall asleep during class. And or that we wear glasses. One devotee was giving a class, and he was wearing glasses. And someone walked into the room where he was giving class, and then he looked at the person giving classes. He's wearing glasses. You told me he was perfect. How could he be perfect if he's wearing glasses? And then he left. Because everyone has the idea of perfection. But Prabhupada said perfection means bhakti samshanat. That's actually coming from Chaitanya Charitamrita. In regard to Advaita-Acharya, he was considered Advaita-Acharya. We have Nityananda, who's blissful. We have Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's the shelter of all the other Prabhus. We have Srivas Thakur, we have a Thakur, and then we have Srinivas Acharya also, Srivas Thakur also. But we have one Acharya, Advaita-Acharya. So why was he Acharya? Because he was Bhakti Samshanat. How he was distributing Krishna consciousness to others. Because his heart was full of Krishna Bhakti, service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his mission, and compassion for all living entities, therefore he was Acharya. Because he was actually able to, by his presence, by his instructions, by his good wishes, turn others into Vaishnavas. So that's what makes one worthy of connecting with. If one is actually an Acharya, and that has to be judged by it has to be judged with the fact that they're completely engaged in distributing Krishna consciousness to others. Their every moment, their every thought, their every action, everything they're doing is to distribute love of Krishna to others. They have no other business. So Srila Prabhupada writes that how do we find out if someone is an Acharya? Well, generally we don't know very well. We have certain external symptoms, such as the fact that they're chanting their prescribed rounds every day. Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction, verse 5. They follow all the rules and regulations, and they're spreading Krishna consciousness. They're dedicating to then we can accept it as an Uttamadhikari. Because that's our vision, that's what we can see. But there's a much deeper vision than that. Of course, when Prabhupada says, they're always chanting their prescribed rounds every day. He uses words like always. Following all the rules and regulations. We don't even know what the rules and regulations are, what to speak of following them. and always thinking of how to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Such a person should be accepted as an Uttama-Adhikari. But then the deeper one is that they've assimilated all the instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. They understand perfectly the Siddhanta. And they know their spiritual identity. In other words, they're not simply speaking theoretically about the fact that we're spiritual beings. They've realized not only that they're a spiritual being, but they realize who they are as a spiritual being. And at the same time, they know that there's no difference between Krishna and his name. Therefore, when they chant Hare Krishna, it's not shnik shnik Ram day 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 day, hey kitty kitty, hey kitty kitty, Ram Ram day 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 day, hey 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 hey. It's actually Krishna's appearing along with his name, his forms, his quality, and his associates. So they're all there when he's chanting Hare Krishna. And he's feeling divine love and ecstasy, experiencing the loving exchanges, not only between himself and Krishna and his devotees, but between all the devotees and each other and Krishna. And he has no other business than to 24 hours a day be engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness. He has no other desire, no other business. He does nothing else but spreading Krishna consciousness. So such a person should be accepted as an Uttama-Adhikari, and everything one has should be offered to him. Especially the brahmacharis, they go door to door, not door to door, they beg alms, and they offer whatever they have to such a acharya. But if one is not an acharya and he imitates acharya, whereas one is not on that platform, then he's sure to fall down. Now to come to that, we have to serve someone. So even if we think theoretically that this person is connected to the acharya, such as Srila Prabhupada, and of course it's better to know practically what the acharya's instructions are, so we can see if they're following the acharya's instructions, and we should see if the acharya's instructions are the same as Krishna's instructions. In other words, if the parampara is intact and they're giving the same instructions that Krishna is giving. Because at least theoretically we're trying to come to Krishna consciousness. That's the name of our movement. It's not the Mickey Mouse Club. It's not our local football club. It's the Hare Krishna Club. It's the Krishna consciousness movement. And if we want to move along with the movement, we have to connect. That's why we have this movement here, is to become conscious of Krishna. Now, we don't really believe that Krishna is God, and we couldn't care less if he's God. And we don't even like the people in the movement. We don't like any. What are we doing here? In other words, if we don't at least theoretically accept that the goal of life is to obtain Krishna consciousness, and this is a movement which is apparently giving the same instructions that Krishna gave 5,000 years ago, whoever Krishna may be, and that if I follow this, that these are the same instructions, and if I follow these instructions, then according to Krishna, then I'll become conscious of Krishna. Krishna will reveal himself to me. So that's why we're here. As I said, one man asked Srila Prabhupada during a class, he said, Swamiji, can you tell me something about Buddhism? So Prabhupada asked him, are you a Buddhist? He said, no. He said, do you study Buddhism? He said, no. He said, well, do something. If you want to find out about Buddhism, then do something in Buddhism. And then why just talk? Why just ask these ridiculous questions? As Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, verse 34, that blind following absurd inquiries are condemned. That one should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiries. In other words, everything we're doing will have a fruit, a result, if there's not only inquiry, submission, service, and inquiry, but there has to be service. If you go to a university and you simply you're not submissive to the teacher, everything he says you contradict him, why is it like that? Why is it like this? You join a movement and the only thing you say is that I used to belong to this other movement and they did things like this and they did things like that. Why don't you do it like that? And then the answer should be, well, if the other movement you belonged to was so good, why don't you go back there? Why did you join this movement for? So submission has to be there. At least one has to have a feeling that I'm here to learn something. Not I didn't come here. I just joined the movement. I'm here to save it. I came here as God's gift to the Hare Krishna movement. I know I had to save all these rascals here. No, some submission should be there, and inquiry. If we think we know everything, there's nothing left to find out. If we have all the answers, then why join the Hare Krishna movement? We should make our own movement so we can give everyone our answers. Like sometimes people say, well, I know everything about Krishna. Well, can you tell me something about it? Well, actually, I know everything. I don't have to tell you anything. It's like someone says, I have mystic powers. I can move the sun. Well, that's good. Can you do something like move the sun, make it a few degrees lower because it's pretty hot around here? And the answer is, well, I could do it, but I don't want to. It's very hard to discuss something with someone like that. I have all the mystic powers. Like one of our devotees, after he became one of the 11 Acharyas, he told me, he said, isn't that wonderful? Now I've become a guru and now I have all mystic powers. So the answer is, great, can you produce some samosas because I'm hungry? Do something practical with your mystic powers. So there not only submission, but there has to be inquiry. We have to be asking, as Prabhupada asked his spiritual master, and he wrote his last letter, how can I serve you? And then there has to be service, something practical. You go to the university, you challenge the teacher, you never ask him a question, you don't care less what they're teaching, you never do anything, any studying, you never follow any instruction that they give you, and at the end of the term you want your degree. The only thing you'll get is a good kick to the behind. Who's going to listen to you? Someone puts up a sign that it says, heart operations, half price. And you go there, you see on the table there's a saw, and there's a chisel and a screwdriver. Say, this is a pretty cheap operation. Where did you learn from? So I didn't learn, I just read some books somewhere. I don't know what the name of the book was, but I read it. And how many times have you done an operation? Well, I did a couple. They weren't so successful, but I think you'll be the first one. No, we have to follow, assist. First of all, we have to see who's successful. In other words, one man was going to learn how to become a veterinarian, how to become a horse doctor. And he was being trained up by an expert horse doctor. So the first time he saw his teacher, he saw a horse and had a big lump in its throat. So he carefully observed the teacher, and the teacher took a big hammer and smashed the horse in the throat. The swelling went down, and the horse was cured. So now the student thought, now I've learned the technique. I know how to cure horses. So he went all around the country with a big hammer and smashing horses in the throat and killing them in the name of his teacher. So then his teacher caught up with him and said, "Sir, what are you doing? You're going around the whole country killing horses in my name." He said, "Well, I learned from you." He said, "How did you learn from me?" He said, "I observed you carefully. I saw there was a horse that had a big lump in his throat. You took a hammer and smashed its throat, and the swelling went down and was cured." He said, "Yes, that's because the horse had swallowed watermelon." And I hit the horse in the throat, and the watermelon broke up, and the swelling went down, and it was cured. He said, "I know what I was doing because I was trained up properly, but you're just imitating me, and you're causing havoc." So one has to learn by hearing, and if one cannot learn the whole science by hearing, then one has to learn by experience. But by following the actual instructions that were there, we may not know perfectly what the Acharyas have given us, so we try to the best we can to figure it out and then apply it and see what the result is. Now the result should be, we connect with the Acharya through the instruction. And indeed, if we follow the Acharya's instructions, either they're delivered directly by the Acharya, or they're delivered by his representative. We follow those instructions. Indeed, the result is that we'll associate with the Acharya. Now, we may not know perfectly what the instructions are, but we follow, but at least we're connected with the Acharya, and by such a connection, then we'll get some mercy by our attempt to follow those instructions. And Didami Buddhi Yogam Tam. The Acharya is simply telling us two things: how to engage in service to Krishna, following the footsteps of the previous authorities, and how to do it with enthusiasm and love, care and attention. That's all they're telling us. And if we think the Acharya is going to teach me how to bet on horses and win $1 million, or would put the money in a kitty and it'll increase exponentially in my next lifetime, that's not the instructions of the Acharya. He's not teaching us how to play football. He's not teaching us how to win friends and influence people. He's teaching us only two things: how to engage in devotional service according to the instructions and the example of previous Acharyas, and how to do it enthusiastically with love and devotion, care and attention. That's all the instructions are. That's why an Acharya is an Acharya. And if we follow those two things, however imperfectly, then Krishna will help us. Now, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, one may know that the goal of life is Krishna, but one is addicted to the results of one's activities. So we may be acting karma yoga, or one may know that the goal of life is Krishna, but one takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, jnana yoga. Well, that's also all right, because Krishna will help in any case. But when one knows that the goal of life is Krishna and gives up everything to serve Krishna, like Bali Maharaj, then the result is it's Buddha yoga, the full yoga. One will actually become conscious of Krishna. One's intelligence is being fully utilized in service to Krishna. Then the result is Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshanaha. Tad Buddhiyas, Tad Atmanas, Tad Nishtas, Tad Parayanaha, Gachantnyapana Avritim, Jnana Nirdutta Kalmashaha. One's intelligence, one's faith, one's mind, one's refuge, Tad Buddhiyas, intelligence, Tad Atmanas, one's faith, Tad Atmanas, Tad Nishtas, that's faith, Tad Atmanas, that's mind, Tad buddhiyas, when one's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge, are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of all misgiving and proceeds straight on the path of self-realization. And then one can see everyone is Krishna's servant. I'm Krishna's servant. Everyone is Krishna's servant. My only purpose in life is to serve Krishna by helping others become Krishna's servant too, assisting them. Becoming a servant to those who have higher realizations, higher absorption, Krishna consciousness than me. Cooperate amongst those who are on the same level as myself, and to assist others who are less experienced to become more experienced, more conscious of Krishna. Now, if I'm not on that platform of completely engaging myself in Krishna's service with my intelligence, with my mind, with my faith, with my refuge, then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Mayeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya nivasha shishya mameva atar orvam nasamshaya. Just fix your mind upon me, engage all your intelligence in me, thus you'll live with me without any doubt. But if you're not on that platform, what's the first word in the next verse? That just follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga, and this way try to develop the desire to obtain me. Does anyone know the first word in that verse? Does anyone have a Bhagavad Gita? What is that? Oh, the first word, just the first word. What's that? Atachitam samadatum nasakshnosi mayi stiram abhyaseno yogo tato mamicham tundaranjaya. Just, what's the first word again? Abhyasa? Atachitam samadatum. If you cannot fix your mind upon me, tachitam samada nasakshnosi mayi stiram, then follow the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, and this way try to develop the desire to obtain me. Everything is based on desire. And desire is based upon experience. And experience is based upon what our intelligence is, so that where are we putting our mind? In other words, if we have experience in ecstasy of devotion and love for Krishna, if that's the way we see things, then actually we want to put our mind there. And we have experience of something else that gave us happiness and pleasure, then we'll put our mind there. If we felt ecstatic at the football game because my team won, then we'll go there next time the football team comes. And if my team always loses, then I'll go to some other football team, because I feel morose every time my football team loses. So then we'll choose another, unless we're really dedicated to our football team. In happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, we still maintain our faith and our refuge in our football team. So Krishna consciousness means to put our mind and intelligence, our faith, our refuge in Krishna, and the result should be that we see Krishna everywhere, because we're in ecstasy, and we see everyone as Krishna's servant, and our minds become stable. We're not interested in praise and game and happiness and distress. We're interested in meditating on the ecstasy and love of Krishna. Bhayas parshe visaktatma vindat yatminiyat sukham. So yogi, let's see. Bhayas parshe visaktatma vindat yatminiyat sukham. Sa yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Such a person is not attracted to external objects or sense gratification, but is always entranced, enjoying the pleasure from within. In this way, the self-realized soul enjoys unlimited happiness because he concentrates on the Supreme. So that's our goal, to spontaneously, with our intelligence, with our realizations given by Krishna because of our sincere service, everywhere we look, we see externally, we see Krishna everywhere, and internally we're always thinking about Krishna. His pastimes either on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, or in his pastimes in Vrindavan, which includes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So that's what this movement is meant for. And we expect that the Acharya, that's all his business is. Bhakti samshajna, just to give us that. And therefore, when we see so many people engage in Krishna's service on the basis of his instructions and example, then we know he's an Acharya. He's an Acharya. There's an Acharya for football. There's an Acharya for politics. There's an Acharya for making money. But this is an Acharya for becoming Krishna conscious. We got to choose what we're looking for, and then see who's the best example of that. Now, there may be so many devotees that are helping us become Krishna conscious. There's so many devotees who are helping so many devotees becoming Krishna conscious. But the actual Acharya is helping everyone become Krishna conscious. He's the full picture, and he's empowered and enlightened different of his followers to different degrees. They're his plenary portions, but he's a full proportion. So such a person is the Acharya, that's Srila Prabhupada. And he has so many associates we can help us connect with the Acharya, and ultimately with the whole disciple succession, going back to the 6 Goswamis, to the Panchatattva, and through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation, develop the same feelings through service to his mission, and therefore always feel transcendental separation from Radha and Krishna and their associates in Vrindavan, and therefore live in Vrindavan. Therefore, giving charity on the basis of instructions of those to this movement, on the basis of someone who's serving the movement, serving the Acharya, because the movement is not some buildings. It's not even just books. Actually, it is the books, but anyhow. It's the actual person, Srila Prabhupada, and service to him and the mission that he represents as the Acharya, representing all of our Acharyas and disciples of succession, whether it be Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, whether it be Gorkashore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Sarvabhauma, and the 6 Goswamis, and ultimately back to this Panchatattva and Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. That's what this is meant to connect us with. So when we give charity, we give service, we do everything, it should be on the basis of connecting with Prabhupada's instructions, either received directly from him or directly from those who are directly serving Srila Prabhupada by following his instructions. Then we make the connection, and the result is that we'll become, Krishna says, Dadami Buddha Yogam Tam. Then he'll reveal within our hearts what actually is going on here. And then when we see what's going on here, and then we actually apply ourselves with full sincerity, after we get tested, of course, because we find out what's going on, and then the real test comes. All right, you know everything. Well, let's see what happens when you're put into a test, like the Pandavas or Prahlad Maharaj. Let's see how much you really know. I know I got the realization. All right, let's see if you can actually, how far you realize. Then the test comes. And if we can somehow or another pass the test, then Tesham eva nukamparatam ahama jnanajam tamaha nashamyatmavavasho jnanadipena bhashvata. Then Krishna, who's dwelling in our heart, destroys with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. And all the theory we have becomes experienced. Then we actually become fixed in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we can pass every test in the world, the Bhakti Shastri test and all the other tests, and then when it's put to test, we may not pass the test, the real test. It's like a parrot can chant 16 rounds, 64 rounds a day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. All day long it can chant. But then when the test comes of death, Hare Krishna, so we have to, all this knowledge is valuable, all this service is valuable, but then we have to prepare to pass tests. And the test is not necessarily going to be, what they say, a cakewalk, a piece of cake. It may be a slap in the wrist, it may be a slap in the mouth, maybe it's, all the great devotees, they've had to pass very severe tests, like Bali Maharaj. you give away the whole universe, and the result is someone arrests you and pushes you down like a crow. That's a test. I thought you loved me. I gave you everything I had. What more? And then what are you going to give me in return? You're a rascal. I wasn't expecting that. So we give everything that we have to Krishna, and the result is we're put into a test to see how sincere we are. Even in the spiritual world, the tests are there. In one of our books called, one of the books by the Acharyas, Vilap Kushamanjari, then Raghunath Das Goswami, there he's the Manjari, who's Rati Manjari. So he does so much service to Srimati Radharani, he's getting so many benedictions, he's in ecstasy, and he doesn't even make a mistake really. He just, somehow or another, something goes wrong, and he gets blamed for it. And he gets cast out. And he's crying in ecstasy, of course, in separation. But it's a big test. And then Lalita comes and she reunites Srimati Radharani with Raghunath Das Goswami, with Rati Manjari or Tulsi Manjari. He passed the test. It's another test. Even in the spiritual world, how much he's going to be completely dedicated in any circumstance to Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani says the same thing. She's being tested. Ashishava padam panastimam adarshanam amahatam karotiva yata tata vidadatu lampato matprananatastusta eva napara. You may trample me. You may leave me brokenhearted, but you're always my worshipful Lord under any condition. So that's the real test we have to. And if we pass that test, those tests, then at the time of death, when we get the real test, when not the universe will be taken away from me, my pet poodle will be taken away, my fish tank will be taken away, my body will be taken away, everything will be taken away. But still, you're my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Although you're taking everything away from me, still you can't, I'm not going to leave you. You're going to remain in my heart. As Vilamangal Thakur says, that you may leave me, you may get away from my grasp, but you're never going to be able to get out of my heart. That's what we want to come to. And that's what happens when we serve the Acharya properly in disciple succession, then Krishna will remain in our heart in all circumstances, and that's the perfection of life. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes. Do we have a microphone? Somehow or another, every time I ask questions, the microphone never comes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice class. You mentioned about how you mentioned the story of the trainee who went around curing the horses.
You like that story?
I was trying to sort of help the people in this world, and we're trying to outreach or preach, and our help can be somewhat like that. We have heard some things here and there, and we're trying to help them.
Well, if we go out in the preaching field and we think, the champion's here. The Maharati, book distributor. I have so many devotees back at the temple waiting to hear my score. How many other, how I conquered the universe. Save the world. Not only that, I've given up, I don't think I'm the controller. I don't think I'm the enjoyer out here. I'm the savior. We go out there as Digvijaya, conquer these conditioned souls. Then the conditioned souls didn't come out in the street so we can save them. In other words, you can go out, here I am, they'll say, get lost. You have nothing to offer me. So unless we're in a humble way, as Bhaktivedanta Thakur says in one song, you know that song? Now that, I guess it's Kabhi Habis Bolo Se Diamo, that now with a humble heart, I'll go out and preach this message divine. When and when will that day be mine? So as a humble servant of our Acharya, simply as an instrument, if we go out, then we'll at least save one person. Do you know who that person is? What's that? Ourselves, yeah. At least we'll save one person. Prabhupada said that in this material world, there are so many different organizations meant to save people. The Morgie, what is that? The Red Cross, so many different benevolent organizations, and they're given great respect. But actually, the best thing, the most important thing is, first of all, to save oneself. So we're trying to, before we go and preach, we're trying to be equipped with the idea that I'm not the preacher, actually I'm just an instrument, as Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion, that one should never consider himself to be a great Acharya, one should simply consider himself to be an instrument of the previous Acharyas. Nimitra matram bhavasavasachin. And in such a attitude, such a consciousness, then one will at least be able to save oneself. Because if you go out and preach, there's so many obstacles, there's so many tests that are there. We're not going out there and everyone's going to love us and respect us. Nityananda Mahajan had to face tests too. He went out, I'm here on behalf of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm God himself, I'm your heart, I'm the super soul. I've come here to save you. Please chant Hare Krishna. And he got a rock in his face. So what to speak of us? What is our potency? What is our position? So that's the attitude. And then at least, even if we get a rock in our face, then if we tolerate and remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet while we're doing it, then we'll be saved. Because we'll get more than a rock in our face at the time of death. And we're preparing for that. We have to clasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda so we can get Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, even at the time of death. Clasp the lotus feet of the disciple succession so we remain connected under all circumstances, even when we have to leave the body. Therefore, Prabhupada actually wanted his departure filmed as an example. The doctors said, because Prabhupada hadn't eaten for like 9 months or something, he was just all skin and bones. He said a normal person, he'd be screaming in pain. Prabhupada didn't take painkillers, but he was simply absorbed in meditation. So he wanted to show how to leave the body as an example. So he even had it filmed. That's called detachment. Is that all right? Anything else? Yes.
How do we get the balance between knowing that we're representing Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada, the disciplic succession, and you know, we may be feeling the benefits and the conviction coming from Krishna consciousness, and so have enthusiasm, feel bold, feel like we're empowered. You know, we often feel like that, but then at the same time, we're also recommended to be dependent on the previous Acharya, you know, on our Guru, for example, and on the previous Acharyas and on Krishna. So on the one hand, we're to be bold and entrepreneurial, if you like, or enterprising for Krishna, but at the same time also be a dependent, you know, a faithful representative, feeling humble and as Prabhupada says, incapable. It appears to be contradictory, or it is contradictory if from the material perspective anyway.
Well, it depends upon our vision of things. if we understand that everything here belongs to Krishna, and what we're doing is authorized by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and therefore whatever we're doing is meant to simply please the acharyas and their representatives, then when we start with that conviction and we have this Krishna and the acharyas within our heart, then we may have so many different emotions and enthusiasm and things like that. But if we lose that, then we better get it back before we start doing things, because otherwise we might get ourselves into trouble. Because the result is sometimes we're successful doing things and we forget why we're successful, who made us successful. Just like Arjuna at the end of he was quite successful on the Battle of Kurukshetra. He defeated great Maharathis like Bhishma and Drona and so many different personalities. But then somewhere or another he lost it all. He's wondering what happened. Now it's just like throwing clarified ghee on ashes. I've lost, this is the same Gandiva bowl, I'm the same Arjuna, but now nothing's working the way I thought it was supposed to be working. What happened? And then he realized I'd lost Krishna. So we have to always remain meek and humble. And always, that doesn't mean, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Trinadapi Sthini Chaina, that it means that we have to, it's a progress, it's a development. And we always have to come back to it again, to realize that I'm completely dependent upon the Acharya, Prabhupada, and the disciple succession, and their representatives. Not only Prabhupada, but Prabhupada's teaching us how to see who's his representatives and how to serve them too. That we're dependent on them. And we can't, anything we're doing is not because of my prowess, it's only because of their instructions. I'm following their instructions and I'm giving them mercy, going up because I'm following their instructions, and coming down from Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as soon as I disconnect myself with that attitude, then I'm lost. Doesn't matter what I've achieved in the past or what I think I've achieved. One should understand that. I can't do anything without their mercy, anything of any benefit. We're doing we think we're doing so many things, but the devotee realizes that actually simply my desire to serve the previous acharyas and their representatives, by that desire, they're doing so many things either through the internal energy. They're doing it, not me, just because I'm desiring it to be an instrument. And when I forget that, then I won't be doing anything either. But the external energy will be doing so many things, which I'll be taking credit for. An illusion. Is that right? Anything else? Yes. In other words, we all have our power and we all have our abilities, and they're multifaceted. So some people are they're dynamic. But that dynamicism is Krishna's energy, not our energy. That intelligence is Krishna's intelligence, not ours. We're simply dovetailing with Krishna by our desires. And then all these things will come out, and if we keep the basis there, then we can do amazing things. Krishna can do amazing things. But if we start taking credit for it, then we come under the illusory energy, then we become asara, useless. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice class. Maharaj, you had mentioned how we should engage our actions, minds, words, and everything in the service of Lord Krishna. But we see engaging our actions is much easier than engaging the mind. The mind can be extremely difficult in engaging in the service. So do you have any tips and tricks by which we can easily control the mind and engage it in the service?
Well, it was the same problem Arjuna had, so I don't have any complete tips or tricks of my own. I can just repeat what Krishna said when he heard Arjuna's complaining about, because Arjuna asked Krishna, in the 6th chapter, Krishna explains so much about how to control the mind in the 6th chapter, and then Arjuna says, well, I heard what you're saying, but I can't do it. Do you have any tips or tricks? And Krishna said, Asamshayam Mahabaho. It's undoubtedly difficult to curb the restless mind. Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, I just told you, I just spent a whole chapter telling you about how to do it. And now you're asking me again? No, he said it's undoubtedly difficult to curb the restless mind. But it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So that's what we're learning. That's why we have our sadhana. That's our suitable practice. And during our sadhana, we have to become a little detached. Not that someone's chanting, and we think, well, that person's chanting, but he stole my samosa yesterday. How pure could he be chanting? I don't know, maybe I should leave here. I don't want to get contaminated by his chanting. We have to become a little detached from our mind, and therefore actually listen to the person chanting and appreciate it. Oh, he may be a rascal, but he's a nice rascal. Oh, he's actually chanting to Krishna to engage in his service. I better protect my samosas, he may steal another one. That may be part of his service for all I know. So we have to see things by sadhana bhakti, develop a transcendental vision, so that all these different disturbances that come to our mind, we don't become disturbed by them. Possible. Detachment. Then that's how do we control the mind. Not that here's my oh my God, it's going here. No, we go, my God, my mind's going there. How can I control it? It's going everywhere. No, it's by detachment. And the only way you can do that is chant Hare Krishna very sweetly, lovingly to Krishna. And when Krishna feels, sees we're trying to chant lovingly, then he'll reciprocate. And he'll appear before us lovingly, and we'll feel what real love is. Then we'll know how to chant better, how to chant lovingly. We'll get more encouraged to do that. And all these other things will seem insignificant. Tuchava.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.